Hi, everyone. Welcome to our first student life panel. I'm so excited to have a great conversation with you all and answer a lot of these questions because you had so many in your written responses. So basically, right now we're going to open up for our panelists before we go into breakout rooms. And feel free to type any questions you might have. And so one of the major questions was, and this is on a lot of people's minds, is how do you think COVID-19 will impact this semester? And so it doesn't have to be like, of course, no one has an exact answer to this, right? But like you can answer from like if you are part of a student group that is making any plans, or if you are working with a particular office. And of course, nothing stays the same, nothing is set in stone. But just like, I don't know, I guess how much of an understanding we all have, if any.
Since the COVID started in March, we didn't return from spring break. But, to be honest, online classes aren't that bad. They're not as terrible or terrifying as people thought. I think you just need to be flexible and be prepared for all these online classes, because you're not going to school. You actually have more time at home, so you can put in more delicacy into your works and more time to focus on certain topics that you are really interested. And also, I think professors are being extra flexible and accessible at this time. They're more understandable about everyone's situation. I have a friend, who cannot join the normal discussion group because, it could be 2 o'clock in the morning back in China when the discussion started. So they actually, switched them to another group, or even, allow them to just watch a recorded Zoom meeting on their own times. I think they're really accommodating, but yes, is not as good as in person. And we do miss out a lot of the opportunity to interact face to face, hugging, shaking hands, the personal touch to a conversation has been filtered in some ways. But, as long as we're flexible, we're adjusting, I think it's really not that bad.
Yeah, and I'll add on to kind of the non-academic side. I know I can't speak for every organization and every office and every CIO, but I know that I'm working in a couple offices that we're planning events events that we had planned to be in person are fully transitioning online. So obviously it's not ideal to have these events, larger events online. You can't really interact with people, because I know one of the few things that are really exciting as the international students coming into school for the first time in first year itself is just interacting with people in large groups, learning about different clubs, different classes, different people, different groups. So that I think that kind of sucks that we probably won't have that in person anymore. But I know that a lot of offices and CIOs are planning on creating events that are online, or even if you're in Charlottesville, making smaller events where maybe people 6 people can meet outdoors, social distancing. So I guess that's look forward to that, but obviously everything's not going to be the way it used to be, which sucks.
Yeah, and I can put in, I think a lot of teachers, a lot of clubs, I think everyone really understands that this semester is going to be different. So everything's going to be online, regardless of whether or not you're in Charlottesville. I think you'll get a lot of the same opportunities. And professors, a lot of people are worried about is this semester going to work for me? Is it going to work with this time zone, etc.? Professors are supposed to make accommodations based on your situation, which includes your time zone. So if they are not recording their lectures or something like that, you can always ask them to. They're usually very accommodating. If not, then you can always speak to a global greeter for advice on what to do. But I would suggest, if you have any sort of problems, always go to your professor or TA or whoever you're supposed to talk to for that particular class. And then another question that seemed really prominent was kind of like, you know, what's social life like, just in general. But I guess also like during COVID times, because those are the times that we're living in. But just kind of a sense of like, how do you adjust to UVA, especially as an international student?
On that, I think like it depends a lot from like person to person. Like for me, it was like it took quite some time for me to adjust and make friends. But I think like the main thing for international students that you shouldn't like put like make that a burden for you. Just like take your time to make your friends. Each person is gonna like take their own time. Some people on the first or second week are already gonna be like with friends and hanging out, and for others it's just gonna take a little longer. But like I don't think, like, the key thing is just take your time. There's no pressure to like to stress about it and be like, oh my gosh, I haven't made as many friends. Like I made so many friends on the second semester, so it's just like it's a process that continues on like on your like years ahead at the college. So I would just say like take your time for social life. Yeah.
And I think like continuing on with that, like if since we're all going through like a situation of COVID-19, sometimes we can get that like engaging online can sometimes be like overwhelming, especially because your classes are already online. And so if you're also gonna have to do like online events as well, sometimes it can get a bit demotivating to connect your social life, and that is completely fine. You are not alone in your situation. And I think that if there's anybody that like you need to talk to, there are always resources like and that could help you out with regards to like being engaged on grounds, whether that could be CIOs or even your school or even professors and TAs. Again, they're really the ones who can help you engage better, especially even with social life. Like the CIOs, like they will always be there.
Yeah. And also a lot of clubs that I've been in are kind of thinking about, and like they're inventing ways to stay connected. So they have like, there's a lot of online bingo going on, to be honest. Maybe too much, perhaps. I don't know. I don't know how much bingo is too much. But anyway, so at the very least, you can do online bingo, especially through the Alumni Association too. They're doing that, and they actually give out gift cards if you win. So, but it's very competitive, very hard. There's so many people. So take that as a challenge, maybe. Yes, no, who knows? But definitely, like, you can still get involved with clubs, and a good way to get involved is, you know, there's a resource called @UVA, so you can just look that up on a browser, whether that's Google or something else, and you can find that, and you log in using your UVA computing ID and password, and then you have access to look up any student organization you want. And it can be a networking, social, religious, volunteer organization, any sort of student organization. There's like 600 plus. And then you just email whoever that email is for, and they'll probably get you set up. So it's pretty simple. Just say, hey, I want to get involved. And usually people are excited. They're like, what? I'm getting an email about this? And it's just like someone who's interested. So, and then you'll get added to a group chat or whatever. So I think it's nice because, you know, we have the means to like transition online. Okay. So another really big question is kind of about how like resources, like really good on grounds, off grounds, student organization resources. What have you found, if you're gonna suggest anything or multiple things, like what have you found to be your community or something that's like a resource that's very helpful, just for students who are starting out, they're not really sure what's out there. There's so many things, right? There's 600 plus student organizations. There's so many offices at UVA. What have you found to be really helpful for your student experience?
I have two recommendations. One is Hacksivo, which is like a student organization located in the corner, and they offer different kinds of technology and design courses. For example, like coding, and also I had graphic design course there. So it's really helpful. And I think they're also holding an online activities fair for student clubs this semester. And the second thing I would recommend is UVA Library. I'm not sure if the library will open this fall, but there are so many books and resources and even movies like Game of Thrones that you can borrow from the UVA Library. And even like sometimes you can like borrow textbooks from the library so that you don't have to spend that much. And also like you can go online to look for the like UVA librarian online chat to ask them about anything, like any resources. I'm like they would be very glad to help you with everything.
I think also depends on, oh, sorry, did I cut you off?
No worries. Go ahead. Go ahead.
All right, thanks. I think the other thing I might cover a little bit of what are you about to say, Adrian. Is the culture group of each country, each culture actually. I think being international student from different countries in the world, different regions, we all at the beginning need someone and some stuff that we're familiar with to connect and to ease in the transition. And I think, you know, your own culture group could be a really good starting point. You need people, you know, who speak the same language, who share the same identity. Here, I'll shout out to CSSS and MSN. Both are for Chinese students. But, you know, everyone who are interested in Chinese culture could join, and they really have some really awesome events. The Spring Festival Gala, actually last year I hosted the gala at Old Cabell Hall, which is pretty awesome. Check it out next year. Hopefully we'll be returning around. Yeah. And yeah, like Adrian might mention the Young Filipino organization, which I will hand over to him.
Yeah, so I was gonna shout out to two things. First of all is the Organization of Young Filipino Americans. It's filled with lots of Filipinos, but you don't have to be young, Filipino, or American in order to join the organization. So that's one of my favorite organizations. But also for main resources, one thing I found to help me cope through my transition was CAPS, which is the Counseling and Psychological Services. So if you're ever going through any sort of trouble, like whether or not it's mental related, or you can even refer to student health as well. They have a lot of resources, both available in person and online in the coming semester. So I suggest taking advantage of that as well.
And I want to say that like UVA has a lot of resources, and sometimes it can be really overwhelming where to start to look for these resources. And I've always found that the Office for Dean of Students, also known as ODOS, is a really good broad, like centralized area to start with if you were looking for anything. So, and it has a lot of resources for things that might be difficult to talk about to your friends, like food insecurity, housing issues, financials, and also refers you to student health and CAPS, like you said, Adrian. So if you go to their page, there's like a ton of resources. So like if you don't know where to start with your finding of different clubs, different mental health systems, or anything like that, it's a really good place to start and like reach out to qualified people to talk to about that.
I also just want to, sorry.
Sorry, no, Cal.
I just want to say that from an academic perspective, as someone who had no experience with an American education, I studied in an Indian school. It was really helpful to have some academic resources like the Writing Center or the Math Collaborative Learning Center, in addition to just speaking to my TAs, who can often be a lot more approachable than professors. At least to start with, I would highly recommend engaging with these resources and other similar ones when you face any kind of academic stress, because even if you are familiar with American education, college is very different from high school, and it's okay to be a little bit not unsure of what you need to be doing and how, especially in the beginning.
Oh, sorry, Grace, do you want to
Oh,
say
no,
something?
I was just
Go
going
ahead.
to add, I was going to follow up on Adrian's point about mental health services. So there's CAPS, but then there are other offices as well that you can seek help from. For example, there's the UVA Women's Center, and they have counselors there as well. And some of them are confidential advocates. So confidential advocates are not what's called like a quote unquote mandatory reporter. So you can tell them and you can feel entirely like safe and secure and know that like you are able to make decisions about what you want to do with like something that could be really stressing you, and to not have to worry about any sort of repercussions of whatever you're sharing with them. And they're, you know, professionals, and even though it's called the UVA Women's Center, it's for anyone of any gender, so it doesn't matter whether or not you call yourself a woman, you can still go there.
Yeah, that's a really good. Oh, go ahead.
I just thought that there are like many new culture centers on grounds. I don't know if we can still go there this fall, but I really like how the plays like are designed and look, and there are also people there. So I think they're also good resources.
Yeah, I would just add that like more like community related resources. There's an organization called Madison House that they offer like volunteering activities at Charlottesville, like opportunities. So like as international, sometimes like at least for me, I felt a little like disconnected from the Charlottesville community, and then doing volunteering with Madison House really like put me more in touch with the city and the people who live there. So it's like a good opportunity if you want to like feel like you're more part of Charlottesville, not just UVA. So yeah, I would highly recommend that.